G'day folks, welcome back to Learn to Paint TV. Got an exciting episode for you. This week we're going to be doing a little town in northern New South Wales, a town called Mullumbimby. And as you drive into Mullumbimby on one of the roads that come into town, there's this amazing view of this peak of this mountain and a little cottage and so on in the foreground. So it's going to be a fun little landscape painting. I'm excited about doing it. So hopefully we'll have some fun. I'm going to start off with step one of the Moore method. We're going to take our little flat brush here. I've got ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, and we're going to start out with step one, which is drawing in the big shapes. So I'll put the photo up on the screen for you so you can see what we're doing. But for now, I'll just get some water on my brush and take a bit of the blue, a little bit of the red. Just a nice loose mixture is what we want. So put a bit of water into that there. So I'm painting with acrylics here today, the Acrylic Interactives. And you can always drop by the learntopaint.tv website, and there's a list up the top there where you can click on for all the art supplies that we use. Now, the key with this painting is we've got to get the shape of this mountain incorrectly, because anybody that's familiar with the subject is going to recognize it straight away. So this point here, so I always start off by looking for the points to draw from. So this point here is above the halfway mark. So if I pop a mark around about there, and then we've got a row of trees which fits in around about there, and then we've got some foreground trees sort of around about there, and the cottage is going to sit somewhere in there. Okay, so this point here is a good one to get, and then the tip of this mountain is just like where I've taken the photo, it's just on center. However, we will run it to off center. So if I have a look there, it's around about there. Yeah, that's around about right. I'm happy with that. So that runs down in a peak, obviously an old volcano. A lot of this northern New South Wales and into southeast Queensland, you get a lot of that. Okay, so it's a peak there. There's another little peak out the back, which runs down there. And that runs down to there. And then there's another little mountain range that runs off to that side. And then this side here, it runs down in through there somewhere. Now I'm doing that line deliberately a little bit softer because we're going to put something over that. So this drawing is a little bit more complex than what we might normally do, which is good. It's going to challenge us a little bit more. So in terms of this cottage, I'm just going to block in a section there, okay, and we'll pop a little indication of a roof, and we'll come back and we'll detail it. In fact, I'll just make that paint just slightly stronger. We'll come back and we'll work on that, and then we have this main tree that is going to just dominate that area there. Okay, so this is our main sort of gum tree, which is in the foreground. So that's our step one of the Moore method, is getting the drawing in. I think we've got we've got a good understanding of where the big shapes are. So we've got our main mountain in through here. We've got a row of distant trees through the back there. Then we've got around the cottage, there's some stronger darks and some stronger tree colors in there, and the same over this side. And then our main dark is going to be this tree here, okay, with the road, which we'll turn that into a dirt road. We won't keep that as a bitumen road. We'll give it more of a country sort of feel. So I think that's good. Let's move on to step two, which is our block in. And then I'll take it's a larger flat brush with hog bristle hairs. You can see they've all splayed out a bit, but that's perfectly fine for doing landscape painting. When we come to cutting around this little cottage, we obviously want to have a finer brush to work with. But for this section here, it'll be perfectly fine. Now I'll start off and I'll just give my paints and my canvas just a little bit of spray of water. Dip this in the water as well, just to soften it up. And let's work on this background mountains. I think that's our key, is to get that right. So we're going to go blue, a little bit of the alizarin crimson and some yellow ochre in there, and some titanium white. And we're just got to find that right tone that's going to give us a nice atmospheric feel to it. Probably going to need more of that white. Okay. Now, if that paint sort of is a bit broken, that's okay. Don't overmix it. I think if we can get it some nice interesting colours and so on in there, that's a good thing. Okay, and we'll just start to block this in. So it's got a nice grey blue feel to it, and the reason why it's gone a bit grey is because I have the three primaries. So instead of just the ultramarine blue and the alizarin crimson, I also added in the yellow ochre, which has made it go just a touch on the grey side, which is perfectly fine. Down lower, I'll get just a little bit more white in there. So probably runs out a little bit more like that. And there's a little bit in the background there which will just lighten that off. So there's another little peak. It's part of a beautiful mountain range in the hinterland. Which if you go to Byron Bay, you can see all those mountains off in the distance. It's quite dramatic. And let's just test that. So you can see it's just a little bit darker. It's not a whole lot darker, but it is a little bit. I'm just going to pull some paint out of the brush. This big brush obviously holds a lot of paint. And what I want to do is I just want to use the edge of this brush here now. Just push the edge of it up. And then just use that edge to get some interesting shapes and treetops. Just doing it, you know, fairly randomly. Don't overthink it. Okay, one that sort of is a little bit taller there. I'm going to go to the blue and the red, like that, just to pick up a little bit of that white on there. I don't want it to be completely, I want this one to be our darkest dark, the main tree. So we just go a little bit there, and if I now push that up, you can see that that's quite a bit darker in there now. And when we come in and we start to detail this up with some highlights and so on, we can then create the separation of all these different bushes. But for now, I'm just going to block it all in as one tone, basically. Okay, and then through here we've got our darkest dark. Red now yellow there. So that's gone a bit warmer, which is good. So let's just work that in. So there's all sort of foreground trees and things in here. So I'll just work those in. Again, using the big brush, so don't be tempted to try and get into detail at this stage. It's a mistake that's very easy to make, and this is the advantage of the Moore method, is that just by using a handful of brushes and knowing when do we use a big brush versus a small brush, we can progress through the paintings a lot easier. Probably put too much yellow ochre in there then, so that's easy to fix. Just push it more to the ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson side, and there you go. Got it back to a nice dark now. Okay, get a bit of water, and let's just scrub that in. Now I could have done the sky first and then just layered this over. That's not a problem either way. Just means I'll have to just work the sky around it, but not a problem. And then this one here, make that stronger and warmer. Okay, so I always find this sort of reddy orange tone is really good for putting green grasses over. So I'll just run that through to there. Flick some of that up. Just get a bit of brass sort of effect there. I'll just darken it slightly in this corner. All right, so now we're going to begin step 3 of the Moore method, which is all about the highlights, the details, and the finishing touches. So I've let this dry off. It's pretty much bone dry now. It's quite a warm day here in the studio. It's heating up, so need to be mindful of that as we continue to work through. On my palette, I've got ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and yellow ochre, so our basic palette. I will add a couple of booster colors to that as we get underway here. And our primary job, first of all, is to detail up this background row of trees, then this middle distance, and then the foreground. Then we'll come back to our main tree. So a lot of what we're going to be doing here is just creating some interesting tree shapes. The light source is coming from over here, so we need to keep that in mind as we start to detail this up. Now, whenever you do highlights, you're going to find the shadow tone, and I'm off there, but because I'm lighter and warmer, I don't mind. But what we want to do is we want to get that tone and then lighten it and warm it up, and that's what will give us a nice highlight tone. So I'll take another chunk of white into that, like so. Mix that nicely around. Pinhead of the red and a pinhead of the yellow. Okay, that's starting to go a nice goldeny colour there. And then the key is to test. You can't tell from that tone there. Experience can help, but you can't really tell if that's the right tone or not until we come up in here and just start to test. Now, with highlights, it's better to have less paint on the brush. Okay, so we'll just tap in that highlight. I might just go a little darker. I think a little bit more blue back into it. And let's just start to work that into some of these tree tops here. Now, because we're looking at this in isolation at the moment, it's the only highlights up there, it probably looks a bit bright. But when I come in and add in additional highlights in the middle and distance in the foreground, and they'll be a lot stronger, these highlights won't look so, they won't pop out so much. And for this middle distance trees in here, I want to just bring in the colour up a little bit. So I want to make it a bit greener. So we'll go for the blue and the yellow. As we get, as the subject gets closer to us, the colours become more vibrant. So we'll just try that out. Okay, and just warm that one up with some cadmium yellow, and just here where the cottage is, there's quite a, it's like a wattle tree, I think. And then up in here there's a bit of brighter tone as well. come back in here and do this field in the back. So we don't want too much bright yellow in there. Just want a bit more of the yellow ochre side things. That's sitting in the back here. Field there. Take that same tone and run it along the verge here. Just a couple of places. Then this one here, that we're going to brighten that right up. Something along these lines. And then just tone it back a little. Now with that path, I'll just get a lighter version of it than what it is right now. Along those lines, I want this to be like a dirt path. So a nice bright tone at the back there is going to draw our eye in. Probably should have waited until I'd added some more shadow in there, but not to worry. Just put in some extra shadow from some of these trees. So now let's take ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, get some bright cadmium yellow and some of the alizarin crimson, just mix those up. Okay, going for a mid-tone here, so I don't want it to be too bright just yet. And I'm just pushing those edges up. You can see there it's quite scruffy. And let's just come in here and find some spots here where our foliage is going to be. The key with this is just a really gentle touch and not too much paint on the brush. If it's clumped on the brush, it's going to end up clumped on our tree. Now I'll go a little bit darker as I come back into here. For more of an orange now. So I've just got a little flat brush here. I'm just going to put in a light blue tone. So if you imagine this was a white weatherboard house and the walls are in shadow. Okay, so load up that brush. I've got plenty of foliage already in there. That's okay. We'll mix up it dark and we'll come back into that. Now I'll get some white. Now I'm not going to clean the brush too much, so there'll be a tint of the blue already in there, which is what we want. And let's just do a really simple little roof. Okay, so I've got a dark, just sprayed some water into it. Got my liquefying medium here. And what I want to do is just get in some darker. I've got a few going out that way, and then we can highlight those. And then let's just clip a few highlights in here. Well, there we go, folks. Got there in the end. Great little painting, Mullumbimby in northern New South Wales. I like the way this sort of sits in the background and your eye runs down through the path and up to the main tree and then back around into this little cottage here. A little bit of indication of life with some smoke coming out of it. I think the big takeaway for this one is how we created the layers of depth, and wanting to replicate that, I think, is the goal here. Just by incrementally going from lighter to darker, and then progressively working forward, and in shaping up our trees, making sure we've got plenty of the darks left, and we're just highlighting that top of the tree in a little mushroom shape where the sunlight will be coming in. Great little painting. Have a go at it. Look forward to seeing your version of it. I'll see you next time on Learn to Paint TV. Cheers for now.